Aye.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, anybody against? Okay, motion has passed. So now we'll start with our first item on the agenda. As far as content is concerned, that would be the operating budget. Jeremy.
Okay, thank you, commissioners and chair. What this is actually the FY28 request for an FY28 appropriation. The commission submits this request to the LFC and to DFA by September the 1st, and per normal, we seek the commission's approval of the both the budget request and then after the session the operating budget. So the materials you have before you are the requests that Wendy has prepared, and she's here with me this morning. Starting with the S8. So in your materials, you'll see that for FY28, the commission is requesting a general fund appropriation in section 4 of $2,159,200. This, let me break this down a little bit. So the largest part of the request over and above the FY27 operating budget is for an additional FTE. So we're now at 10 FTE, and we're seeking an expansion of an additional FTE, and that would be an extra $148,000 in the 200s budget category. We're seeking an increase of $10,000 in $5,000 in the contractual services 300s category, and that's to keep up with increases that the Administrative Hearings Office is charging for hearing office work. And then we're also seeking a $5,000 increase in our 400s category, the other operating expenses, and that's just to keep pace with inflationary cost increases that we're seeing across several categories, including Westlaw subscriptions, licenses and dues, lease costs, GSD, RMD premium costs, etc. This budget request also anticipates a 10% increase in healthcare premiums. As the commissioners know, the commission covers 80% of employees' healthcare premiums. The other 20% come from the employees themselves. And that's, we are in a climate of rising healthcare premium increases, and Wendy and I are never quite sure whether or not the appropriation for healthcare increases is going to be sufficient, but this budget is also calculated to anticipate a 10% increase there. So that's what the section 4 general fund request looks like, $2,159,200. The commissioners also have included in their materials the special appropriation that the commission will be asking for, and that comes at a later section of House Bill 2. We've received a special appropriation in the past for 3 fiscal years, and we're making a similar request for a special appropriation authorized for 3 fiscal years for $125,000, and that would be for litigation and attorney costs, interns, software agreements, subscriptions, employee training, and IT equipment. And that's really, I think, strategically a way for the commission to ensure that it has sufficient funds year over year in its budget, without necessarily asking for the LFC and DFA to bake in this increase into the commission's budget. Chair, this is Judge Klingman. I'm going to ask him to call Amelia.
Okay.
And Chair, apologize for that. With that, you have before you the operating budget request for FY 28, or the appropriations request rather for FY 28 that we plan to submit to the LFC and DFA on September 1st. And I would be seeking a motion for the Commission's approval for this request.
Okay. Do I have a motion?
So
Well, first
moved.
of all, before we do the motion, I want to thank Jeremy and Wendy. This is a lot of work and we really appreciate it. So motion, and then we'll do discussion.
I
So
think,
moved.
second.
Okay, now we'll start with you, Commissioner Baker. Questions?
Couple of questions. One, you said we now have 10 FTEs. You're requesting enough money for 11 FTEs. What do you anticipate that additional person would do?
So thank you, Chair Commissioner Baker. It's an attorney position. Our kind of attorneys are stretched thin across all of our functions with respect to Rolona, with respect to advisory opinions, with respect to administrative complaints and litigation. And at the point that the attorney would come on, that the attorney would be assigned to the demands that are most needed therein, likely Rolona and administrative complaints.
So is that fair to say that you'd be recruiting a younger lawyer for that position?
Likely. So we have to budget these positions at midpoint. And the way that the LFC and DFA requires this position to be budgeted, it's one that would likely be commensurate with hiring a younger attorney.
And my second question involves the medical component. You said that the commission pays 20%. I'm sorry, 80%. The employee pays 20%. Is that required by the state, or is that simply a policy of the commission?
No, Chair Commissioner Baker, that is required by the state. State agencies pay 80% of employee premiums.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Bluestone?
Jeff asked what I was going to ask about the additional FTE, so no questions. Thank you.
And Commissioner Klingman is not on yet, correct? So we have Commissioner McMillan.
I have no questions, thanks.
Okay, and Commissioner Villanueva.
You answered the question I had. Thank you.
Okay. Are we ready to vote? No more questions? All right. I'll go ahead and take a roll call vote. Commissioner Baker?
Yes.
Commissioner Bluestone?
Yes.
Commissioner Klingman, not here yet. Commissioner McMillan?
Yes.
And Commissioner Villanueva?
Yes.
Okay. All right, thank you. On to the next item, which is the history of the State Ethics Commission. And I'm looking to Darren Eberhardt.
Chair, let me introduce Darren. So, good morning, Darren. Thank you for joining us. Darren is a student intern that was with us all summer at the commission. He's a rising sophomore at Georgetown. He's an incredibly talented young man, and over the summer, he has reviewed the materials that Dee Dee Feldman and Cliff Rees have left with us, and has drafted a history of the commission. And before he goes back to Georgetown, and while we're still editing that piece of work, which I'm very excited to share with you at a future point, I'd like Darren to introduce himself and that work. Turning it over to you, Darren.
Hi,
Mr.
everyone.
Klingman, I'm going to. Oh, okay. I think it worked. I'm gonna hang up.
That's good that the audio is working again there. Hi, everyone. I am, as Jeremy said, a student at Georgetown, and I looked through 8 boxes of files belonging to Feldman and Rees over the summer, and read a lot of news articles from the Albuquerque Journal, Albuquerque Morning Journal, which is a predecessor to the Albuquerque Journal, Las Cruces Sun News, etc., to kind of get a sense of not just the way that the commission has come about, but also the way that ethics law and corruption have developed in the state of New Mexico in a broader sense. So I do have a presentation I can share, if that's okay. I'm not sure if I have the permission though.
Darren, let Amelia and me try to help you get that permission.
Okay, sounds good.
Can you hear me?
We can.
Yes, welcome.
Well, I'm back. I can't see you, and hopefully you can't see me. But I believe we can proceed, Madam Chairman.
Great. And you can hear us all, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you and welcome.
Well, thank you very much.
Okay, Darren, I see Amelia's made you a co-host, so you should have sharing privileges.
Yes, oh goodness. I may have to quit and rejoin to share. I didn't have the settings set up on my laptop. So if you'll excuse me for a second.
That's fine. That's fine. Take the time.
Sorry
you need.
about that.
No problem.
Stuart, how are you this morning?
Pretty well, Judge. As I was saying before you got on, we had a nice rain again last night. And with the nearby fire, we need all the help we can get. So that's good news up here.
Yes.
How is it down there?
Oh, we're keeping warm.
I'm sure of that. But you don't have any fires, do you, nearby?
We do not. We do not. That's because there's nothing to burn down here, Stuart.
Gary, you make me laugh.
Okay, Darren, welcome back.
Thank you. I think it's going to work now.
Good.
Okay.
Good title.
Can everybody see that?
Yes.
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 Great. Then I will begin. All right, so I started by looking back all the way to territorial area in New Mexico. I wanted to get a sense of kind of the way that the New Mexico Constitution, the ethics provisions that were in there, came about, since they're stronger than the ethics provisions that are in the US Constitution, for example, and in other state constitutions, especially earlier ones. It was something that I wanted to kind of explore in terms of why did New Mexico have these stronger ethics provisions in their constitution. And finding that out required looking back at the territorial era. During that era, anti-corruption law was weak and not well enforced. This is largely because of weak national governing legislation, the nature of the legal situation in New Mexico, in which New Mexico was governed by laws that were passed by Congress, created a situation in the state in which there wasn't a lot of enforcement and there wasn't clear anti-corruption law in place. So some of this early legislation included the Kearney Code, which was a military code after the U.S. annexed New Mexico during the Mexican-American War. And that only lasted for about 4 years, from like 1846 to 1850. But that one was actually stronger than a lot of the other ethics provisions that would come for the next 50 years or so. The 1850 Organic Act is what ultimately was the main governing document in New Mexico for most of its territorial history. And that one did not contain significant anti-corruption provisions, and not super comprehensive in that regard. And the result of that was a pretty significant culture of corruption. Notoriously, that took the form of the Santa Fe Ring, which was a political machine in New Mexico that was very similar to other Gilded Age kind of cooperation between business leaders and politicians. It involved speculation, and there was violence associated with it. The Colfax County War it wasn't really a war, but there was violence related to the land speculation that was going on and the money that was flowing. So that kind of set a tone for the 1910 Constitutional Convention that happened in New Mexico, which ultimately actually created the Constitution that serves as the basis of what New Mexico currently has. The state had proposed previous constitutions, I think 4 prior to 1910. This includes one in 1850 and one in 1889. Both of these had some ethics provisions, but they were relatively weak, especially compared to what the 1910 Constitution ultimately included. So the reason that the 1910 Constitution had the level of strong ethics provisions, including, like, for example, it had anti-bribery statutes that explicitly defined a penalty for when bribery was committed. That is not, of course, present in the US Constitution, nor is it present in a lot of East Coast constitutions. However, there are similarities in other states in the West. So this is one of the reasons that it's possible that the New Mexico had stronger anti-corruption in its constitution than some other states. It is that this territorial era, which was kind of characterized by weak ethics law and anti-corruption law, led to kind of a culture of unscrupulous behavior. And a similar situation like this happened in the Dakota Territory, and they also, in their state constitution, at least in South Dakota, have comparatively stronger anti-corruption statutes than some other states. Another reason that might be attributed for New Mexico's strong anti-corruption law is the fact that New Mexico's constitution came right in the middle of the Progressive Era, which was a response to the Gilded Age kind of corruption that was present even at the federal level. Teddy Roosevelt is considered one of the strongest anti-corruption presidents in American history, and he finished his term in 1909, which was the year before the Constitutional Convention. So that culture of anti-corruption likely had a role and was on the delegates' minds when they were drafting the Constitution in New Mexico. And that was despite even like some of the political figures that were part of the Santa Fe Ring and the corruption in New Mexico during the territorial era were present and pretty important members at the Constitutional Convention that happened in 1910. Included in those was Thomas B. Catrone. He ultimately went on to be the U.S. Senator from New Mexico. He was elected by the legislature. But he as well was a key member of the Santa Fe Ring and then went on to be at the convention. So the political tides must have been pretty strong to convince people like Catrone to be involved in a constitution that then criminalized some of the actions that he was probably involved in.
Just so you know, Darren, we pronounce it Katrin.
Thank you. Thank you. So after the Constitution was adopted and New Mexico became a state, almost immediately the ethics provisions that were present in the Constitution were put to the test. In looking back on it, it's kind of humorous fashion, but I'm sure it wasn't humorous at the time. In March 1912, so just 2 months after New Mexico was adopted into the United States as a state, 4 representatives were accused, arrested, jailed for accepting bribes related to the election of New Mexico's United States senators. And this was all over the news at the time. It was like front page in the Albuquerque Morning Journal, as all of these are headlines that came from that newspaper. And it developed quite quickly. I think it was pretty much over by middle of April. But at first, it seemed like the ethics law that is in the Constitution was going to work well, and these men were going to be held accountable for this alleged corruption. But it turned into a very politicized affair because it was the New Mexico legislature that was taking out the trial for these men, or undertaking the trial for these men. And there were political reasons why some people in New Mexico's legislature wanted these men to be present, specifically people who were supporting a certain candidate for U.S. Senator. I believe it was Albert B. Fall, who was the particularly of issue in this situation. So some of these members supported that and wanted these extra members to be involved in the voting in order to get their candidate that they wished to be a U.S. Senator. Ultimately, the House voted to reseat 4 members that were suspended initially for bribery in March. There isn't any sign that this was due to them actually being not guilty. They could have been, it could have been politically motivated, the entire idea that they were committing bribery or soliciting bribes. But we probably will never know because the trial went through the New Mexico legislature and was heavily politicized. So even at this very early date, and the reason why I looked at this particular case is because it tells the need for an independent oversight committee over a century before it ultimately came about. Even right after New Mexico statehood, we were already seeing issues with not having a an independent agency that can do the investigation into ethics violations. Now, of course, the current Ethics Commission doesn't have the authority to handle these bribery cases, but even so, it's kind of demonstrative of the need for independent investigation. So despite this history and despite all of the corruption that New Mexico is notorious for, it's actually not uniquely bad. Corruption isn't uniquely bad in New Mexico. This is a map that was provided by the Center for Public Integrity in a survey that they did in 2015. And it gave New Mexico a D- for corruption, but in every other state in the United States, corruption was also pretty bad. Alaska had the best score, and that was only a C+. And as you can see, there were several states that had worse corruption than New Mexico did, and received F grades for public corruption. So despite the there's kind of a pathology in New Mexico about corruption that, like, we are a corrupt state. This is just how it is here. We can look at the Santa Fe ring. This is an example of it. Despite all of that legend, or some of it legend, some of it fact, New Mexico is not particularly or uniquely corrupt. So that kind of raises the question of New Mexico's cycle of corruption that I'll get into a bit as I look at the Ethics Commission proposals and the corruption scandals that came about in between each proposal. Whether that cycle of corruption is a self-fulfilling prophecy, Dee Dee Feldman in her 2014 book, Inside the New Mexico Senate, talked about how there's kind of a discouraging culture within New Mexico, inside the legislature itself, as well as in New Mexico in general, about, like, this is just how it's done in New Mexico. The idea that corruption is just how it is. And so if there's conflict of interest in the legislature, if there's bribery happening, or lobbying that is questionable, or whatever the corruption might be, that is just something that happens here. And that sentiment, it can't be proven that it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, but it does seem that it influences some of the culture of corruption in New Mexico. And so breaking out of that has been difficult, and it's often taken the form of this cycle of corruption in which a scandal occurs, lawmakers say we need reform, and sometimes there is some amount of reform, but often that reform is pared down or weakened because of opposition, leading to inadequate or no reform. And the result is that there isn't adequate ethics provisions, which maybe there will never be, but there certainly can't be with significant opposition, leads to future scandals because the culture of corruption is still present in the state. So the first Ethics Commission bill was that I found evidence for was in 1990. This is later than some people in New Mexico had previously thought. Vicki Harrison, for example, who was the executive director of Common Cause in the late 2010s, theorized that the first Ethics Commission bill came about in the 70s. That was true in the United States generally. After the Nixon administration and the Watergate scandal, there was a big push even among states to kind of get ethics bills passed. and have more ethics oversight. So other states did have ethics commissions that came about in the 70s. But New Mexico did not have one proposed until 1990. And this was done, it was bipartisan. It was done by State Representatives Pauline Eisenstadt and Don Silva. Pauline Eisenstadt, a Democrat, Don Silva, Republican. And it was a little late to the scene because other states had already put forward ethics commissions and even passed ethics commissions into law. But it wasn't particularly late. It would have put New Mexico in the middle of the pack in terms of adopting ethics commissions. Nonetheless, it died in the House, which is a curious reversal of what would happen later, especially in the 2000s and 2010s, where ethics commission bills would consistently die in the Senate. But this time there was strong opposition in the House, specifically the House Majority Leader, Raymond Sanchez. He was strongly opposed and kind of led a House that was also opposed to the idea. So this began talks of an ethics commission. The next proposal came about in 1993 after the scandal involving Ron Alguin, representative.
Alguin.
Thank you, Alguin. I don't have a video when I'm researching this to pronounce these
okay.
names correctly, obviously. Just reading a lot of stuff, so excuse my mispronunciations.
No. I just thought you'd like to know.
No, it's helpful. Thank you. Alguin, he was found to be soliciting bribes, potentially or allegedly. And the result was not expulsion from the state legislature, but rather just a censure, which was a point of real contention and controversy because some lawmakers wanted more. Some lawmakers obviously did not feel that more than a censure was necessary. Regardless, it led to another push for ethics, like the cycle of corruption that I was talking about earlier. So an ethics bill or an ethics commission proposal passed the Senate 40-2 the next year in 1993, but died in the House again. This one was a constitutional amendment, like the one that passed in 2017. That is unique because a lot of the bills that happened in between 1993 and 2017 were not constitutional amendments. It was the exception rather than the rule that a ethics commission would be passed as a constitutional amendment rather than just a bill. Anyway, prior to the 1993 bill, and probably part of the reason why it didn't pass, a task force recommended against creating an ethics commission on the grounds that it would create unnecessary bureaucracy and lead to more politicized talk of scandals and addressing scandals through a politicized process. And so after the failed bill in 1993, there really wasn't much talk of an ethics commission until 2005. But 2005 through well into the 2010s, honestly, right until the constitutional amendment to create the Ethics Commission was passed in 2017, the cycle of corruption really took place here. The Montoya and Vigil scandal involving New Mexico's treasurers happened or came to light in 2005. That led to Governor Bill Richardson's first task force convened in 2006 and recommended an ethics commission in a reversal of the 1992 task force recommendation. 2007 saw numerous failed ethics commission bills. Often this time they were stopped in the Senate. In late 2007, Governor Richardson's second task force again recommended an ethics commission. Also in late 2007, the courthouse scandal involving Manny Aragon, who's a big political figure in New Mexico, as I'm sure many of you know, came to light, and that was another driving force for ethics commission talk of an ethics commission, but still it was not enough to get one over the line. 2009 saw Governor Richardson's pay-to-play scandal, and again, this brought New Mexico's corruption now to the national stage. And then mid-2009, so early 2009 was the Richardson pay-to-play scandal that ultimately led to him being, or him recusing himself from Obama's cabinet, which he had already secured a position for. Other than that, though, there were no consequences in terms of criminal penalties or anything in that nature. In any case, mid-2009, another two corruption scandals. There was the affordable housing scandal involving Smiley Gallegos and the Vigil Giron Secretary of State election fund scandal, in which she was accused of embezzling those and using them improperly. Ultimately, throughout this time period, Dee Feldman, again in her 2014 book, said that 49 ethics commission bills were brought up and failed. And of course, throughout this time, there were all these corruption scandals happening. Part of the reason that some of these failed was because they were very weak. And this also became another theme in New Mexico Ethics Commission bills. The 2009 bill was critiqued at length by Aaron McSherry in the New Mexico Law Review. As you can see, that one had its issues, among other things, because it did not adequately diagnose the issue, according to her. 2010 was even more, and this bill became even more notorious for being toothless and ineffectual. The Albuquerque Journal, in an editorial, said that having no committee is better than this committee. So that just kind of gives a sense of how people felt and how the media felt about that bill. 2011 is just, the bill in 2011 is described by Dee Feldman in her book. And this one, when I was reading the book, I thought it was talking about 2010 because it sounded almost exactly the same. And she called that so weak that even advocates backed away. A big point of contention in especially 2010 and 2011 was the how under wraps investigations would be, and how much transparency there would be about pending cases that the Ethics Commission would be undertaking, and whether hearings would be public, what if people could talk about cases that were pending or cases that had been ultimately chosen to be tossed out. And there were ultimately in these bills, they gave no penalties for anyone convicted of the crimes that were stipulated in the bill, other than censure or reprimand. But it gave a $25,000 fine for anybody who blew the whistle if there was a currently pending Ethics Commission investigation into some ethics violation. And that was not popular from groups like Common Cause that were pushing for a more transparent Ethics Commission. So several of the Ethics Commission, or several of the ethics scandals that happened in the late 2000s led to, or probably played a part at least, in the election of Susana Martinez in 2010. And the Martinez years were characterized by a little bit different attitude to the Ethics Commission, where Governor Bill Richardson had been vocally supportive of it. Governor Martinez was not so supportive of it. She had similar critiques to it that the 1992 commission report said about it adding unnecessary bureaucracy, unnecessary politicization, and things of that nature. And what that kind of led to during especially the early 2010s was not much action on an ethics commission, especially since there weren't many high-profile scandals that came to light during through 2015 until 2015. And so the combination of Governor Martinez's opposition and different ideas for ethics or combating ethics issues, such as removing lawmakers' abilities to collect a pension if they were convicted of any corruption-related crimes. Also, heavier sentences. She also proposed that the New Mexico State Police handle anti-corruption. Critics of that idea pointed out that the New Mexico State Police happened to be under the executive branch, which made it under Governor Martinez's jurisdiction. So that one did not fly, especially since the legislatures were still controlled by Democrats. But in this period, regardless, the Ethics Commission did not really gain traction. Of course, the constitutional amendment did pass during Martinez's second term, and I'll get to why that is in a moment here. So what led probably to the talk about an ethics commission anew, despite Governor Martinez's opposition and the slowing in momentum for an ethics commission, were the scandals involving Phil Griego and the Secretary of State, Diana Duran. This also proved that ethics violations were bipartisan because Diana Duran was a close ally of Governor Martinez, and Phil Griego was another Democrat legislator. But these two scandals proved that it was still very much an issue. Ethics issues were still very much present in New Mexico, and that it wasn't just one party doing it. Despite the dominance of Democrats in New Mexico, corruption was present. It was endemic in the legislature and executive as a whole. So the 2017 constitutional amendment, as is known, passed. The reasons for it passing are multifaceted and can't be said with complete certainty. Some of the reasons that I identified I have kind of put here. You can compare the Ethics Commission constitutional amendment that passed, House Joint Resolution 8, to another bill that went through the legislature at the same time, the Public Accountability Act, which was proposed by Senator Ivy Soto. And that one was ostensibly should have been more popular with people who were more skeptical of an ethics commission because it was quite a bit weaker than what we currently have. However, that got stalled in committee. And my theory for part of the reason why the constitutional amendment passed, where a bill like HB 10 did not, was the fact that the provisions that were actually in the constitutional amendment were significantly pared down. Representative Jim Dines, who sponsored the 2017 legislation, said that, quote, "My concern is that we try to get something that's simple and not try to bog it down with a whole lot of intricate little details." He said that after a 2016 constitutional amendment proposal that he had tried to push through the legislature also got bogged down, and that one had more detail in terms of the makeup of the commission and its duties and its powers and whatnot. So the decision to make it more limited was very intentional. Another change was that there were new faces coming into the legislature. This may or may not have been a significant contributing factor. Some lawmakers thought that it was. And it's evidenced by the fact that only one of the 4 longest serving senators up to that point voted in favor of HJR 8. 2 of them objected and 1 was excused. Griego and Duran scandals, these 2 probably pushed for talking about the Ethics Commission again, but because there were so many previous scandals that had happened prior to these 2 that had not led to a commission being created, it's hard to say that those 2 were the reason that the commission got created. It brought it to the table, in other words, and my theory is that it brought it to the table, but was not the reason why it ultimately passed in 2017. The Common Cause National Director in 2017 also said that potentially it was federal government changes that resulted in the Ethics Commission passing, specifically the election of Donald Trump. I'm not so sure about this because a lot of the ethics stuff that would happen during his presidency was later, so it seems unlikely to me, but that was one theory. So despite the Ethics Commission bill in 2017 passing and then getting approved by voters overwhelmingly by 75% in 2018 at the ballot, the enabling legislation was by no means certain to make the Ethics Commission something that could actually do a significant job in reducing ethics violations in New Mexico. The Albuquerque Journal said in another editorial in 2019 that there is a move afoot to turn the Ethics Commission the voters approved via constitutional amendment last fall into the kind of secret body that transparency advocates had been assured wouldn't happen. So some of the proposals, specifically Senate Bill 619, which was sponsored by Senator Linda Lopez, was a lot weaker and bore significant resemblance to some of the bills in 2010 and 2011. And so the task to get a strong ethics commission off the ground was by no means assured. So looking at some of the discrepancies between the House version of an ethics commission bill, House Bill 4, and Senate Bill 619. They were pretty substantial, and some of these you can see some of these from each side of the both in the House bill and the Senate bill came to influence the bill that ultimately did get passed, which was Senate Bill 668. But they started from pretty significant differences. Senate Bill 619 had strict confidentiality requirements that were very similar to 2011 and 2010. In fact, the penalties had been increased by another $10,000 for speaking out about a pending ethics violation. It also provided significantly less funding than the House bill, made hearings private, and had a higher evidentiary requirement for finding someone guilty of laws that were in the jurisdiction of the Ethics Commission. Ultimately, these got synthesized through the amazing 11th hour dummy bill, Senate Bill 668, adopted both aspects of the Senate Bill 619 and House Bill 4. It kind of struck a balance in between the two. For example, it took from Senate Bill 619 the requirement that the commission go through a court to issue a subpoena rather than being able to just issue one itself. But it took a lot of the transparency provisions that were in House Bill 4 and adopted those as part of it. And the Senate bill, Senate Bill 668, passed through the legislature in an unconventional way. And specifically, the way that it was passed as a dummy bill allowed it to circumvent the Senate Rules Committee, which was consistently throughout all of the history of creating an ethics commission, a graveyard for many ethics commission bills. So the reason why the Ethics Commission is as it is today is likely because the dummy bill allowed it not to go through the Senate Rules Committee, where Linda Lopez, who sponsored Senate Bill 619, as well as the one in 2010, and I believe the one in 2011, had frequently weakened or stalled Ethics Commission bills in the past. This way of pushing the bill through allowed lawmakers in support of the Ethics Commission to circumvent the Senate Rules Committee, which was successful. Ultimately, it passed through, or the enabling legislation passed through both houses unanimously. So it ultimately, either because of political pressure or because of change of heart, gained a lot of support and passed with a strong mandate to the governor's desk. And that went to the governor's desk at the start of 2019. Part of the reason why I think the legislation in 2017 was a constitutional amendment was because it would be able to circumvent a governor's signature that way, which it did. Because Governor Martinez was opposed to an ethics commission, by making it a constitutional amendment, the legislature could circumvent a potential veto. Of course, with the enabling legislation, that was a bill, so executive veto was a possibility. But at that point, the administration had changed, and Governor Lujan Grisham was more amenable to the idea. So I'm sure all of you know why an ethics commission matters to New Mexico. My findings were and in line with what the Center for Public Integrity found in 2015 was that the largest gap in ethics law in New Mexico is in enforcement. The 2015 CPI study said that New Mexico had relatively strong ethics statute and laws on the books, but had not great enforcement. And so this was a long legacy of lacking enforcement dating back to that 1912 ethics scandal, and can be seen in the decision not to remove Ron Alguin from the legislature. Also, Rebecca V. Hill-Caron did not get or ultimately had her case dismissed because of delays in the trial. There was controversy around the Secretary of State, Diana Duran, relating to her conviction that she only got a 30-day sentence. People were not super happy with that. Governor Bill Richardson and Governor Susana Martinez both had pay-to-play allegations that were mostly, I mean, they led to scandal, but they didn't actually lead to any penalties that were material for directly from that for either of those executives. And both of those happened primarily through State Investment Council, where both Governor Richardson and Governor Martinez directed investments towards people who had supported their campaign. But throughout New Mexico's history, a consistent problem is enforcement. So it proves the need for an ethics commission. And it doesn't necessarily say that the ethics commission currently is able to solve all of these issues, but the ability to have a body that can look at these issues from a nonpartisan and mostly non-political point of view is a big step in New Mexico's ethics legislation. So that leads to where are we now? Well, the Ethics Commission is obviously doing strong work throughout the state to ensure that state ethics are being enforced. There are critiques to be made. Lane Towery, in a 2021 UNM Law Review article, made several critiques of the commission. But, and these are things to work upon potentially. But the commission is doing good work. Additionally, there are issues that are just not in the control of anybody in New Mexico. For example, Supreme Court cases that are on First Amendment grounds. If the Supreme Court rules something that leads to a weakening in New Mexico's ethics law, there isn't much that the state legislature even can do to address that. So we're in a better position now than we were, but it's not perfect, admittedly. And I'm sure all of you know that better than anybody. So thank you. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Well, thank you, Darren. That was very well done. Very detailed, and we appreciate it. So now I'm going to open it up to questions. Commissioner Baker.
First, I want to echo what the chair just said. This was an excellent presentation. Obviously, put a lot of work into it. And what I hope is that your work can somehow be turned into something that can be shared with the public, whether it's a white paper, whether it's, Jeremy, do you have any ideas how this might be put down in black and white and distributed?
I do. We're Darren's written work product is very, very well done. We have to do a little bit of editing across different parts, but I do intend for the commission to publish this on this website and to circulate it. And really, Yeah, I mean, I think that the commission ought to do something to kind of commemorate its 10-year existence when it gets there, and I think Darren's work, yeah, will help us do that.
Good. Well, thank you. Much appreciated.
Thank you.
Commissioner Bluestone.
I too want to thank you, Darren, and echo the comments of the chair and Commissioner Baker. It's an excellent piece of work and very educational and really helpful. I appreciated it very, very much.
Thank you.
If you're ever in Santa Fe and want to get together, I'd be happy to meet with you. I remember being on the floor of the House of Representatives next to the Speaker of the House at the time in the Ron O'Gean debate and the vote on expulsion and censure. And I'd be happy to share some anecdotes if you're interested about that experience. I served on the Governor Richardson task forces in 2006 and 2007. And I may have a few insights from that experience that you would appreciate. And I really got a kick out of your insight into the 11th hour meeting that led to the enactment of the constitutional amendment bill that the people did vote on. And there were some great leaders like Representative Damon Eli who helped push that through at late hour. But my only question, I guess, is this. I think it's the case, but maybe from your studies, you can confirm. I believe that our composition of the Ethics Commission in New Mexico is unique in the United States. And I just wondered if you had any insights into that as well from your research and your review of the history here.
Do you mean in terms of it being bipartisan and the people who choose commissioners?
Yes.
I'm not entirely sure. I need to look at the Council for State Legislatures. They have a whole report on all of that, but they do vary pretty significantly. There are some commissions that are much less powerful than others. And one of the things that Towery noted about the New Mexico Commission is that it's much more transparent, actually, than many others around the country, which is kind of ironic because that was such an issue over the years. It just shows that it took a lot of effort to kind of get where we are today. But I'm not entirely sure of the composition. I'd need to look more into that.
I'm just curious about it. I need to also see that article you referred to. Towery, is that the person's name?
Yes.
Could you arrange for that to be sent to at least me? You say it had some criticisms of the commission. I'm just not familiar with that piece. I'd be happy to see it and look it over.
Yeah, I'm sure that could. I think it's also available online. That's one of the ones that's pretty easily available, but I think Jeremy and Amelia could probably get that to you as well.
Excuse me,
Okay.
that's the law review article?
Yes.
Well, there were two. The one he's talking about, there was an earlier one by Aaron McSherry, but you're talking about another one, right?
Yeah.
I can circulate. Lane was in our very first law student intern class, and as a law student before he came to work with us, his note and all his work at UNM School of Law was on the Ethics Commission. He's gone to the Colorado Attorney General's office. I asked him to come back at various points, and we can't lure him back from Colorado. But yeah, Lane has done a lot of thoughtful work on the commission, and I'll circulate it.
I'd like that. Thank you. And thank you again, Darren. Very helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Commissioner Klingman. Commissioner Klingman, do you hear us? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and pass for right now. Commissioner McMillan.
Thank you, Judge. Darren, I would just observe, I thoroughly enjoyed the presentation. And having been a part of the legislature, to see some of the machinations behind how this finally got across the finish line was fascinating. I hope you feel good about how you spent your summer. To me, it was well spent.
I do. I feel good about it.
You did a good job. Part of it that was particularly interesting to me was the use of the dummy bill to get this past the Rules Committee. That was just an excellent find, and I enjoyed hearing about that. In all, your presentation also helped. I think reminds all of us, the staff, as well as those of us who serve in voluntary positions on the commission, of the value of what we're doing. And I thank you for that. That's very helpful to me. So I'll pass with that, Judge. Thanks.
Thank you. And Commissioner Villanueva.
Yes, Darren, you did an excellent job. I think this is something that the commission needed to have some history behind us and to going forward. It's interesting to me to hear what you have learned from, I think primarily documents that you got from D.D. Feldman. Is that correct? And also the newspaper?
Yeah, and Cliff Reese as well.
And what, please?
Cliff Reese.
Okay, that's another individual. Yeah, I'm glad to hear the history that you gave. Your rendition is a little different than what I've heard, and it's nice to have some of the clarity. I appreciate the work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I'm back.
Oh, good. Would you like to do you have any questions for Darren?
I have no questions. I would make a couple of observations. First of all, I think you did an excellent job. And it was discussed about how to get this message out. I would suggest you contact the New Mexico Law Review, New Mexico Law School. Several years ago, I wrote a thesis on excusal of judges, and they published it. And I think you could probably get a work of this magnitude published as a lead article. You might have to refine it a little bit, but I think it would publish very well. The second thing I would say is that if you're interested in pursuing this, I would go to the sources and go talk to, as Commissioner Bluestone suggested, go talk to Damon Eli. Go talk to the people who are actually involved in this. Much of what you're talking about is recent history, but if you wait 10 years, they're all going to be dead. And you can really get some insight. In my particular case, you talked about Ray Sanchez, and how he blocked ethics and such as that. Whether he did or not doesn't matter, but I talked to him on other issues, and he was very, very insightful about what was really going on. And if you wish to pursue this, I would suggest you might just go to tell them who you are and what you're doing, and they'll talk to you. They'll talk to you. But I thought you did a superb job, and congratulations.
Thank you.
Well, again, Darren, I want to thank you. You can tell from the reaction of all the commissioners that this has been a great presentation. And obviously, we're going to try to memorialize it and go from there. So thank you again.
And Chair and Commissioners, I know it must be strange to sit and hear the historical record of your own lives, to get old enough to be able to hear that. It's very interesting. But Darren, thank you for the work you did over the summer. Please go on to Georgetown and do an excellent job so you can go to law school. And after we are all gone, you can come back and run this place.
Yeah.
So thank you, and please be in touch.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Very good. Very good. The next item on our agenda is proxy voting. And I think Grace will talk to us about that. Good morning.
Morning, Chair and Commissioners. Can y'all hear me all right?
Yes.
Yes.
Great. So today, I've been asked to look more into whether proxy voting is allowed under the Open Meetings Act. And like a lot of New Mexico case law, there really isn't case law on this, but there is a New Mexico Attorney General opinion from 2010, which is in the materials, and that's opinion 10-02 that was written for the New Mexico Sentencing Commission. I think the reasoning from the General's office applies to pretty much any public body in the state. So I'll basically just summarize section 1 of the opinion because it's the most relevant. And here, basically, the Sentencing Commission had adopted a proxy policy that let a member designate someone else to cast their vote for them at a public meeting without that member ever even showing up. And the Attorney General's office concluded that this policy was not allowed under OMA, and they explained that OMA isn't just about letting the public see how someone voted. It's also about letting the public kind of watch the whole process of a discussion, of a deliberation of a vote. And if someone is using a proxy vote, it's really problematic because of two reasons. First, the member isn't participating in the discussion, or second, all of that deliberation is happening somewhere else and out of public view, and that really defeats the purpose of government transparency and having OMA. And so, given the purposes of OMA, it's really unlikely that the legislature intended to even allow proxy voting. And the opinion also cites legal authority from other states, such as Michigan and Mississippi and Oklahoma, where their attorney generals also reached the same conclusion. And so our team has kind of internally discussed whether or not proxy voting is something that we would like to use or think about using in the future. But we concluded that, at least for right now, it's not something that we want to pursue given the rulemaking and uncertainty around the procedure. So let me know if you have any questions.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Grace. We'll start with Commissioner Baker.
No questions, but thank you for your very, very good analysis.
Commissioner Bluestone.
I too want to thank you, Grace. This is very helpful to see. I think in some ways, the need for proxy voting is less imperative these days with the advent of Zoom meetings, being able to take the laboring oar for getting people together. But I am curious, did you find any research in other states where proxy voting has been allowed? I assume by statutes in those states, but I don't know if you had a chance. This is pretty conclusive, it seems to me, on what was found, and I think that makes sense. But I'm just curious if other states have allowed other commissions to engage in proxy voting, and I assume they do so with express statutory authorization in order to override the policy arguments under these open meetings provisions. But I don't know if that's been done anywhere else, and I don't think we need to expend our political capital doing it. But I'm curious if your research found of any other instances in states around the country where proxy voting for commissions has been allowed.
So far in my research, I haven't found that. It might exist, but just sort of given the parameters of OMA and the purposes, I feel like most states probably wouldn't allow it because, of the reasons explained in the Attorney General's opinion. But I can look into it if you're interested, but I don't know. I don't think I'll find a lot.
Yeah, no, I don't want to make any more work on this issue for you. I was just curious if you had come across it, but I think that this is significant and persuasive to me that we don't need to go any further. I was just curious if you had found anything. So thank you very much.
Okay, Judge Klingman.
Yes, I want to thank you for your labor in this matter. You did a very good job, and as an aside, I do find myself in agreement with your conclusion. I think that proxy voting would undermine the transparency of our group, and it would lead, I fear, it would lead to the formation of cliques or alliances, and that might appear to the public to be stronger than perhaps they would be. But I just don't think that proxy voting would be good for a committee like us. Thank you very much, Grace.
Commissioner McMillan.
I have no questions, Judge. Thank you, Grace, for your work.
And Commissioner Villanueva.
I have no questions, but thank you, Grace, for your presentation and your research.
Well, it looks like at this point we take no action on this. So again, thank you, Grace. And I think now we go on to public comment. Amelia, is there anybody that wants to make public comment?
Thank you, Chair.
Oh, no, wait just a second.
Okay, yes.
That's not
Okay,
next. Next is the advisory opinion. I'm sorry. Advisory opinion 2026-12. And Grace, you're on for that one too.
So today I only have one advisory opinion to discuss as opposed to 5. But today we're going to be talking about an advisory opinion, which basically has 2 main questions. And it's a follow-up question to one of the formal opinions that we talked about in our last meeting. But here, the first question presented is whether the Governmental Conduct Act would prevent a state agency from entering into a professional services contract with a former staff attorney who would then represent different clients on matters that the attorney had no prior involvement with as a state employee. And the short answer is yes, this would be allowed so long as the attorney does 2 things. So the first is the attorney cannot take any official action as a state employee that led the agency to enter into their employment contract pursuant to Section 1016(8)(a) of the GCA. And second, as a contractor, the attorney wouldn't be able to represent clients in matters that they personally and substantially worked on while they were employed as an agency attorney pursuant to Section 1016(8)(b) of the GCA. And as always, just want to note that the personal and substantial participation restriction under 1016(8)(b) doesn't expire. And here, given the parameters of this hypothetical contract presented by the requester, they would be able to contract with this attorney because the attorney wouldn't have had a role in the contract's creation or approval of the contract, and the attorney also wouldn't be representing clients on any old matters that they had involvement with. And then really quickly, the second question presented in this opinion talks about distinctions under the procurement code, specifically about entering into a small professional services contract or a competitive contract based on a request for proposals. And under the procurement code, legal services are classified as professional services. And this typically requires the contracts to be awarded through a competitive process for proposals. And the opinion goes into a lot more detail about that process. But really quickly, the opinion also notes that there is an exception for small purchases that the state agency could consider if the contract that they want to have with their attorney is valued under $60,000. So that wouldn't require the full request for proposals. But that is a summary in a nutshell. Are there any questions?
Yeah, well, thank you very much. I think the opinion is very clear. Good job. And now we'll start with our questions. Commissioner Baker.
I echo what Chair Castillo said. No questions. Thank you for a very good work product.
Commissioner Bluestone.
Same here. Thank you, Grace. Your work is excellent, and this one is too. Thank you.
Commissioner Klingman. Okay, I'll pass for the moment. Commissioner McMillan.
No questions. Thank you.
Okay, and Commissioner Villanueva.
No questions. Thank you. Good job.
Okay, and I'm going to go back. Commissioner Klingman.
I have no questions. Thank you, Chair.
Okay.
Well, thank you all for your kind
Well, I'll
words.
go ahead and entertain a motion to approve this advisory opinion. Does someone want to make that motion?
Move approval of the opinion?
Second?
I'll second.
Okay.
Second.
Roll call. Commissioner Baker,
Yes.
Commissioner Bluestone,
Yes.
Commissioner Klingman.
Yes.
Did you have any questions?
No, I did not.
Okay. Commissioner McMillan,
Yes.
Commissioner Villanueva.
Yes.
So the motion passes. Oh, the chair votes yes too. The motion passes. All right. Now we're into public comment. Amelia.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'm not seeing anyone immediately here from the public. But we'll give it a couple minutes.
Okay.
Otherwise, Chair, no one's here. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Now we're into getting ready to go into closed session. I'll entertain a motion to go into executive session under NMSA 1978, sections 10-15-1H3, which are administrative adjudicatory proceedings, and section 10-15-1H7, the attorney-client privilege pertaining to litigation.
So moved.
Second.
Now I'll take the vote. Commissioner Baker,
Yes.
Commissioner Bluestone,
Yes.
Commissioner Klingman,
Yes.
Commissioner McMillan,
Yes.
Commissioner Villanueva.
Yes.
Okay. And I think this is probably a good time to take a break because we switch screens and so forth. So about a 10-minute break, and I'll see you all back in about 10 minutes in closed session.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, everybody needs to join the Ethics Commission closed session.
Celia, you're doing a great job.
Ah,
You
Thank
are.
you. The
You are.
commission staff are very helpful.
I like Madam Chair and her new rule.
So,
Glad this worked out. Amelia has been doing all kinds of things on her end to keep the meeting going. Apparently Zoom has been very much on the fritz today.
um,
We were afraid at one point that everybody would have to sign off and sign back on again, but I think we're gonna limp along all the way to the end.
Well, the
Well,
last thing I heard in the executive session was Gary saying he was not going to touch his computer. He didn't want to take a chance on anything, but hopefully he'll be able to join back in on this one.
We might have to call him again.
I would say call him because he needs to leave the other room to get to us.
Did you hear his comment when I asked him about any fires down there? He said, "Well, no, we don't have any. We don't have anything to burn." I thought that was a riot. He's a very funny guy. Becky, how you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you doing, Stuart?
I am also doing well, although these days I preface it by always saying all things considered,
Yep.
because there's so much going on. I mean, last night, we're not on recording or open session yet, are we?
It says this meeting is being live streamed, so
Okay, well then I won't comment on what I was going to say, but all things considered, everything is good. Thank you.
I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
How about you, Judge Castillo?
Great, doing very well.
Good.
All things considered, of course.
Yeah. Yeah, your trip was to Ireland, or where was it, Celia?
Yes, Ireland.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And I'm sure both of your parents were smiling in their graves.
They sure were. Okay.
There you are.
Oh, good. We hear Gary again.
And back again. Jeff and I were in Never Never Land.
Yeah, Jeff's there too, but he's muted. He's trying to say something, but he's muted. Jeff, you're still muted.
Okay, so I have Jeff.
I don't see
Okay.
Judy
There we
or
go.
Yeah.
Terry.
All right, I'm going to renew what I just said, which is the Ethics Commission should hire a bunch of teenagers and assign them to each one of us. We need help. Well, some of us need help.
Okay.
we won't expose the obvious here.
I think just a second, when Judy comes to the screen, we'll have the entire commission.
We had Terry, but now I don't see him.
No, yeah, he turned off his video.
Oh, there he is.
is. Yes.
No, it just really surprised me how much AI is involved in our life. I mean, it is from beginning to end.
Yeah.
And
Okay, can we just let's there she is. Okay.
We're back.
We're all set to go. Okay, the first thing I'd like to do is explain that the commission considered only those items mentioned in the motion to close the meeting. And with that, we'll go ahead and continue in open session. And the first item on the agenda is administrative matters under Rulona. And Becky, will you lead us in that?
Yes, Chair and Commissioners. In 2024 NP06 in re-commission of Fragua, staff requests the commission dismiss the complaint and issue the warning letter with the changes outlined by the commission with regards to Mr. Fragua's current stamp and if he receives a notary commission in the future.
Move adoption of the proposal.
Second.
Second, okay. Let's take a vote. Or is there any discussion? All right, we'll take a vote. Commissioner Baker,
Yes.
Commissioner Bluestone,
Yes.
Commissioner Klingman. Commissioner Klingman. There we go.
I'm frozen.
We hear you,
Okay.
Gary.
We hear you. We're taking a vote on the motion to approve the letter in 2024 NP06. Yes, thank you. Commissioner McMillan
Yes.
and Commissioner Villanueva. I need you to unmute. Well, you thumbs up, that means yes. There you are.
Yes.
Okay, very good. Thank you. And the chair votes yes, so it's passed unanimously.
Thank you.
Okay, next item, Becky.
In 2024 NP09 in re-commission of Bulliter, staff requests the commission dismiss the complaint.
Okay, do I have a motion?
Motion
moved.
second.
Okay, any discussion? If not, we'll go to the vote. Commissioner Baker,
Yes.
Commissioner Bluestone,
Yes.
Commissioner Klingman,
Yes.
Commissioner McMillan,
Yes.
Yes.
Commissioner Villanueva,
Yes.
and chair votes yes, unanimously passed. Thank you. Now we go on to the next item, which is administrative complaint number 2026-21. And Zach will lead us in this.
Thank you, Chair and Commissioners. In administrative complaint number 2026-21, I am requesting pursuant to section 1016G11, the Commission's permission to continue the investigation as the complaint has been filed more than 90 days ago.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second. Any discussion? Then we'll take a vote. Commissioner Baker,
Yes.
Commissioner Bluestone,
Yes.
Commissioner Klingman,
Yes.
Commissioner McMillan,
Yes.
Commissioner Villanueva,
Yes.
and chair votes yes. Matter has passed unanimously. Now we go on to the authorization of a civil action. Jeremy,
Okay,
turn it over to you.
Chair and Commissioners, the staff requests the Commission authorize a civil action to enforce Section 211(6)(I) of the Lobbyist Regulation Act as against Oracle and Stack Infrastructure.
Motion
Do
to
what?
approve.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, I'll take the vote. Commissioner Baker,
Yes.
Commissioner Bluestone,
Yes.
Commissioner Klingman, Commissioner Klingman. He may be frozen again.
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner McMillan,
Yes.
Commissioner Villanueva,
Yes.
and chair votes yes. The motion for the authorization has passed unanimously. The next item is a resolution, and I'd like to turn this over to Commissioner Bluestone.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As has been publicly reported, the Babylon Bee has filed a lawsuit against the State Ethics Commission regarding the use of artificial intelligence in advertisements and required disclosures about AI under the New Mexico Campaign Reporting Act when used in a satire or parody piece. And I have a resolution I'd like to read into the public record.
Please proceed.
This would be resolution number 2026-12, disavowing enforcement of the disclaimer provisions of NMSA 1978, section 119.26.4 for advertisements that are not campaign expenditures, coordinated expenditures, or independent expenditures. Whereas the New Mexico State Ethics Commission met virtually on August 21, 2026 at 9:00 a.m. Whereas the commission has the power to investigate violations and institute civil actions to enforce the Campaign Reporting Act. Whereas NMSA 1978, section 119.26.4, 2024, requires disclaimers for advertisements for which a person makes a campaign expenditure, a coordinated expenditure, or an independent expenditure in an amount that exceeds $1,000, or in an amount that, when added to the aggregate amount of the campaign expenditures, coordinated expenditures, and independent expenditures for advertisements made by the same person during the election cycle, exceeds $1,000. Whereas the, quote, disclaimer provisions, end quote, of section 119.26.4 require 1, disclaimers informing the public, quote, who authorized and paid for the advertisement, comma, end quote, section 119.26.4a, semicolon, and 2, for those advertisements that contain materially deceptive media, comma, disclaimers informing the public that an advertisement, quote, has been manipulated or generated by artificial intelligence, comma, quote, section 119.26.4d. Whereas on July 3, 2025, Attorney General Raul Torres provided Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham opinion number 2025-09, which considered the constitutionality of House Bill 182 from 2024, and opined that the application of the disclaimer provisions of NMSA 1978, section 119.26.4 of 2024, to satire and parody is unconstitutional under the First Amendment to the United States Constitution. Whereas the Commission has reviewed and considered Attorney General Opinion number 2025-09. Whereas on July 1, 2023, the Commission promulgated a rule available at 1.8.1.10, paren C and paren NMAC, that requires the director, before initiating an assessment, to, quote, determine whether the proposed assessment is based on factors other than activities protected by the First Amendment to the United States Constitution, end quote. And whereas the Commission will not and has no interest in interpreting or enforcing the Campaign Reporting Act in a way that violates the First Amendment to the United States Constitution. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the New Mexico State Ethics Commission, 1, the Commission disavows enforcing the disclaimer provisions of section 119.26.4, including subsections A through F, for any advertisement, as that term is defined under the Campaign Reporting Act, that is not an advertisement for which a person makes a campaign expenditure, comma, a coordinated expenditure, or an independent expenditure, semicolon. And 2, the Commission, however, may enforce the disclaimer provisions of section 119.26.4, including subsections A through F, for any advertisement, as that term is defined under the Campaign Reporting Act, that is an advertisement for which a person makes a campaign expenditure, a coordinated expenditure, or an independent expenditure, and therefore is an advertisement that not only refers to a ballot question or a candidate, but also is made for the purpose of supporting or opposing a ballot question or the nomination or election of a candidate. That is the motion that I make for this resolution to be adopted now by the New Mexico State Ethics Commission.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, I'll take the vote. Commissioner Baker,
Yes.
Commissioner Bluestone,
Yes.
Commissioner Klingman,
Yes.
Commissioner McMillan,
Yes.
Commissioner Villanueva,
Yes.
and chair votes yes. Thank you. And now we'll go on to discussion of our next meeting. Our next meeting will be in October. The first Friday in October is October the 2nd. What does that date look like for everybody?
Works for me.
I'm good.
Fine for me.
I'm good.
You're good. Commissioner McMillan, does that look good for you?
Yes, thanks.
Okay, then it looks good for me too. So it looks like that's when we'll have our next meeting on October the 2nd. All right, the next item is public comment. Amelia, do we have public comment now?
I think Amelia is having some technical difficulties, Chair. I'm looking at the roster here, and there are no members of the public present.
So we have no public comment. Thank you. So now I need a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? No opposition? All right, thank you very much for your comments and everything that we got done today. I think it was a good meeting, so thank you.
I want to congratulate the chair for an excellent meeting. You just slid right into the role of being numero uno. Thank you.
Well, thank you for your support, and you just keep helping me, and we'll get through it.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Great
Thank
job,
you.
Madam Chair. Thank
Okay.
you all.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right. Take care.